Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to another review. Recently I stumbled across some insanely large wagons, the likes of which I've never seen before. So I decided it might be fun to get a few and give them a try. Today's models are made by Walthers, and I've tried quite a bit of Walthers stuff this year, and it's all been really good value and very decent in the level of detail as well. So if these models are similar in those regards, then hopefully this video will be a thumbs up. So I bought three models. The first one is this. This is the Walthers mainline 53-foot gondola, and I'm pretty sure this is possibly the largest wagon I've ever owned in the collection, at least one of them. But it doesn't end there. There is a second wagon, which is this, and this is the real monster, a 68-foot railgun gondola. Man, this thing is insane, and there's a second one of these as well. I got one of these in a different livery. Now, to be clear, I don't think I've ever run any rolling stock that is quite this large before. I'm pretty certain these are longer than the typical coaches and such that I run. And as a result, I have no idea whether these models are actually going to work on my layout. I don't know what radius curves they're rated for, but I thought, you know what, it would be rude not to give them a try. So the price for all three of these wagons is the same at RRP. These are a touch over $30 each, but at most places these have been on sale recently, and so I got the smaller wagon for $21.99. The red one here I got for $24.99, and the darker liveried one was the most expensive of them all for $26.99. And in terms of Great British pounds, that works out at £58 for all three wagons. So the value seems okay, but let's see what the models themselves are like. Let's get started. Right, so three insanely large wagons. One of them very large indeed. The other two are just above and beyond. Never knew that anything like them existed. So I think we'll save those as the surprise for just a moment. Let's start off with the Soonline one. Let me show you the end of the box. So the model I have is the 53-foot railgun gondola. It is in the Soonline livery number 64135, and the product code, if you want to look it up, is 910-6288. It is fully assembled with RP25 turned metal wheel sets and metal knuckle couplers. For that kind of money, I think the metal knuckle couplers is great to see, and hopefully the quality of the wheels will be high as well. But let's find out. I just hope these work. I've not seen any mention on the box of what radius curves these are rated for, so hopefully they will work on mine. Obviously, if they don't, it's probably more my fault than the wagon's fault, because, yeah, these on second radius might be a challenge, but who knows, who knows. Let's open up the packaging, which is high quality, by the way. Lots of protective wrap. Wow, I tell you what, the finish on this is awesome, because this is a budget model at the price I paid, and yet the finish looks marvellous. Right, let's pull this out then. Okay, there it is in all its glory, and you know what, yeah, the level of detail on this is a little bit better than I was expecting. The moulded detail looks good and crisp. It looks like it was made or tooled up recently. Fair bit of detail on this. The weight is okay, it's not dreadfully heavy or anything, chiefly made of plastic I would say, although looking underneath this sort of section above the bracing is a metal piece. So yeah, there's some weight to it. I will weigh it later on for you. Let's go for the next model. This is the one I'm interested in. Let's have a look at the end of the box for this one. So this one, yeah, it is the 68-foot railgun gondola, this time in the Canadian Pacific livery. It's number 355108, and the product code is 910-6407. Here goes then, only the largest wagon I have ever owned in the collection, and yet it's still got the same little tiny bogies on it. So they obviously didn't carry stuff that was that heavy, because there's this massive unsupported section in the middle. It's quite a fascinating thing when you start thinking about the engineering side of it. All right, let's have a look at it. Yeah, again, there's quite a bit of complexity to this thing. More so, in fact, than the smaller wagon. So look at that, quite a lot of printing on the side. I would say the moulded detail is more complex, and the underframe is certainly more complex with all the separately fitted cabling and possibly pipe work. Yeah, that's really, really impressive. I like that. The wheels are not my favourite design because they are the metal wheels but just with the plastic axles, but unlike those really horrible wagons from Lionel, these ones do not wobble, which is really good to see. Okay, well, let's see if Wagon the Third is the same thing, just with different paintwork. I suppose it probably will be. End of the box then, so this is the same length, it's another 68 footer. It is in the CHTT livery this time, number 287074, and it's product code 9106411. Okay, and the crazy thing is, these are HO scale, these are not even 00 scale, the same scale as most of my models, which just makes the scale of these things even more unbelievable. Okay, let's have a look at this then. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, it's darker, it's simpler, it's plainer, but still very smart, and that finish is just marvellous. Hopefully that comes across on camera. Okay, is it the same thing? I would say so, looking at it from a glance. Yep, same sort of level of detail, still got the same great underframe. For the money, really, really impressive. So with that, let's take a closer look at one or two of these. Let's go with let's go for one of the longer ones and then the shorter Soo-line one, show you the level of detail, and then the moment of truth will be seeing how these perform on the layout. And I'll have to cross my fingers and hope for the best, I think, with that. Anyway, let's have a close look. Let's do a bit of a size comparison first then. So here is the big boy compared with your typical 00 scale open wagon. So bear in mind the scale of this is larger than the scale of this, probably about 3 times the length. Here it is compared with a sort of typical coach. Actually the coach is pretty much exactly the same length as this. So hopefully that means this will be fine on my layout, fingers crossed. And then let's compare it with what I think are the largest wagons I currently have in the collection. And this new gondola is only a hair longer than it. So perhaps not quite as huge as I thought, but bear in mind again, this is HO scale, which is a smaller scale than this at 00. And yet here, despite that discrepancy, this is still slightly larger. So in real life, this is going to be considerably larger. Anyway, let's show you these up close. So there is the 53-foot Soo-line gondola up close and personal for you, and obviously this thing only cost $21.99. Compare that with, let's say, a Rapido open wagon from here in the UK, which is much smaller and yet considerably more expensive at £28 at least, pounds mind you. So I wasn't expecting too much on this model, and sure enough, yeah, it is relatively simple in the way it's been put together, but it's also perfectly adequate. The weight is fine at 86 grams, that's fairly heavy for a bogie wagon, I would say. While there might not be a lot of separately fitted detail on the model, the moulded detail is excellent, right down to the rivets. As you can see, the little ladder rungs here look really, really good, particularly on the ends as well. Look at those. And we do have a few separate details, such as the turning wheels on the ends, and then the underframe detail, which is largely separately fitted. The decoration is excellent, the finish looks really, really good, and the printing is absolutely perfect. I would say the Soo-line looks great, and there are some much smaller, finer prints than that as well. All of them appear to be legible too, even down to the small ones. Here's a look at the bogie detail, which again is relatively simple, but it's enough to do the job. And then you've got the metal knuckle couplers. Yep, sure enough, they are metal. They seem to spring reasonably well, although many of them don't open up very much. This one's actually better than most of them. The red one does have some sticky couplings, and I'll show you that one in just a second. But yeah, other than that, for $21 something, absolutely fine. So here is the 68-foot gondola, which is obviously much larger and heavier. This one comes in at 107 grams. And so it's quite surprising that this is the same price at RRP. Yeah, $31.99. This one obviously did cost me a little bit more though. It wasn't reduced quite as much as the 53-foot one was, but still for $25, can't go wrong with this. And it is slightly more complex as well. The moulded detail is more complex. You can see there's these little gaps along the top, which look really interesting. Moulded detail quality still very high. Look at the little chain underneath the turning wheel there. And again, the riveting and other detailing looks absolutely fine. There's a bit more complexity in the print work as well. Look at the way this Canadian Pacific Railway lettering is sort of curving around the struts. That's amazing, isn't it? How do they tampo print like that? Part of this lettering is perpendicular to the rest of the body, which is crazy. And then there are other little prints as well, which are similarly well done. The underframe is more complex as well. There's quite a bit more detail down here, which really does look good. Seeing little fine parts like this really helps to boost the perceived level of detail of the model. And again, for $25, which is more like a roughly 20 quid or so, really can't go wrong. Let's have a look at the knuckle couplers on this. Yeah, that one's a little stiff, as you can see. It doesn't open up very much. So what that will mean for these actually coupling together, I'm not too sure. And I guess that's what we need to find out. I won't show you the other 68-footer because it is exactly the same, just except for the livery. So let's get these down onto the track. Cross your fingers, please, and let's see if they can handle the layout. So here is my test setup. The wagons are down onto the track, and because they are the largest wagons I think I've ever seen, obviously I've opted for one of the smallest locos I've ever seen, which is the Hornby Peckett, and we're going to see how she gets on hauling these in just a moment. First of all, let's talk about how free rolling these wagons are, and unfortunately they are not at all free rolling. And honestly, wagons with the plastic axles like these have got almost never run particularly freely. I didn't notice any wobbling on the wheels this time, but maybe there's still some oscillation there that I can't see, which is increasing the drag. Also, not only are the axles made of plastic, but the little pinpoints that go into the bearings are also made of plastic, so you've got more drag there. So we've got that situation where these are obviously budget models. They've had their level of detail knocked down a little bit, which I think is absolutely fine. But they've also had their performance knocked down a little bit too, which is not really acceptable. I think even if you're buying budget rolling stock, it needs to run well, doesn't it? But maybe these will still run well. A little bit of drag is not the end of the world. Let's test the couplings. I've noticed some of them seem to be a little bit stiff in their movement, but are they actually functional? So let's back up the Peckett, which does have a knuckle coupling fitted to it. And let's see how many couplings are successful. We're making 1, 2, 3 couplings. Let's see. Ooh, Peckett stuck on points. Alert, alert. All right. And all wagons have coupled together, which is good news. So, yeah, false alarm, no issue with the couplings. Assuming they stay coupled together, hopefully they will do. All right, so with that then, let's send these around the track and let's find out how these behave around the curves. Okay, so coming up is the tightest part of the layout, and now that we're on a curve, the levels of drag seem to have increased massively to the point where the powerful Peckett can't even manage them anymore. That's unexpected. Let's give them a nudge. Interesting. Massive friction around curves then. Now, is it the gradient? If I clear the wagons from this curve and then the Peckett hauls them, it's not just the gradient, it must be the curves. Okay, nudging. Yeah, power restored. So massive drag around curves as well. Now that's not good. Let's give them a push around the curves without the loco then, just to watch what happens. Right, so I'm going to give them a good push into these second radius curves and we'll observe what happens if anything. So here we go. Stop themselves very, very efficiently there. So brakes apply the moment we enter curves. Let's try that one more time, a bit faster. No. I guess that was too fast. Right, so that's something that's happening on second radius. Let's try a broader curve, such as 3rd or 4th radius. Right, I believe this curve here on the outside is indeed 4th radius, so let's pull them around here. Yeah, you can feel it. Look at that. Masses of drag there. Oh, and a derailment. Okay. And then, yeah, freeze up the moment they're out of the curve. So it's not, look at that. It's not just me running on 2nd radius then, even broader radius curves do this. And, you know, I'm not an expert on these wagons, but they seem like the sort of wagon that will not be running in a train of 3. I can imagine quite a lot of these things running. And with a lot of these things in model form, that drag is seriously going to add up. I mean, they're just totally unfree on the curves. Yeah, all right. So, not that great. And the cause of the issue is fairly clear. I've got the model upside down here with the wheels fitted onto a piece of 3rd radius track, and as you can see, extreme drag there. And the reason for it is the rear wheels on each bogie, possibly the front ones too, but I think most likely the rear ones, their flanges are catching on the sort of cross bracing that holds the bogie, and they only need a few degrees of rotation, kind of like that, before those wheels start catching. And that means that 3rd radius, 4th radius, and certainly 2nd radius, you're just going to get that massive drag. Completely unacceptable. Even with a little bit of testing and proper development, this issue should have been identified. Is it fixable? Well, it depends. If you're going to run these on 4th and 3rd radius curves, broader curves, then yeah, maybe just a little bit of sanding will be enough to fix the problem. But, you know, on sort of 2nd radius curves, which a lot of people do run on, I mean, it's just an unfortunate reality of model railways. Yeah, you're going to have to take quite a lot of that sort of cross bracing out, which could threaten the structural integrity of the whole wagon. And frankly, it's not something you should have to be doing. But, you know, if you want to take advantage of the good price on these wagons and you don't mind taking the bogies off and filing down the offending parts and trying to fix them, then yeah, maybe it's worth a try, but certainly don't go ahead and buy 100 of these before you've tried those modifications, because I have no idea whether they're going to work. But that's some information on the issue. Let's keep these running now. So I've had to employ a more powerful loco for this task, although even the 08 is struggling on curves. And this is a 3rd radius curve, 3 wagons. That 08 shunter is a mighty beast. That's appalling, absolutely appalling. Sorry, Walthers, I do like your stuff, but there's no way to get around this. And they are all like it, by the way. Tested them individually, they all do it, even the shorter one. But let's do a points test anyway. I'm not even sure the 08's going to be able to push them around here, but we'll try. Okay, so far so good on the points test. The 08's not, the 08 can't believe what's happening here. 3 wagons, it thought. Right, is everything still on the track? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, not sure what happened there, but yeah, we have got 1 bogie off. So the points test's not a resounding success either. Okay, well, the more powerful 08, I'm hoping will at least be able to haul these around the track. Yeah, seems to. And the thing is, if I'd bought one of these and it was stiff on the curves, I could say, you know, maybe there's a manufacturing error or something like that, but all 3 of them are like it, so I can't really give it the benefit of the doubt here. So these wagons are not even that free rolling, frankly, on the straight, but you can get away with it on the straight. So if you've got a super large, realistic layout with very broad sweeping curves, then you could take advantage of these and, you know, buy a big rake of them, and with a powerful enough loco, you'd be okay. On something smaller with, well, heaven help you if you've got set track, train set track or something like that, even on 3rd and 4th radius, there's a massive increase in friction. So I don't really see how I can recommend these to you, which is a shame because the price was great, the level of detail is perfectly adequate, but there's just something not right about the way these run, and that's a pity. Let's do some ratings then for the Walthers various gondolas, the 53 foot and the 68 foot. The level of detail, maybe this is a little bit generous, but I am going to give these 4-star because the level of detail is really good. The moulded detail is great, and where necessary there is some separate detailing such as those turning wheels and the underframe detail, both of which do look fantastic. The decoration and the finish are also absolutely fantastic, no real way to fault those. Yeah, a little bit more complexity in the level of detail would have given these a 5, but ultimately they are all they need to be. Same is not true of the performance though, which I've given 2-star. There's kind of 3 main issues with the performance of these. Firstly, the drag caused by the plastic axles, not a big fan of that. Secondly, they don't do that well on points. Yeah, you've got the friction issues, but a derailment when I tested it as well. And then obviously the biggest issue is the issues around the curves. Even my 4th radius curves are causing massive problems. And maybe you might say, oh, perhaps Walthers designed these wagons for people with very large layouts and broad sweeping curves, but that doesn't make sense. First of all, people who have massive layouts with gigantic 4th radius and above curves, these are not the people who are likely to be looking for cheap budget rolling stock like this. Budget rolling stock needs to work on anybody's layout. Second of all, if that was the case, then that should have been mentioned on the packaging. As it is, there is no mention of the minimum curve radius on the packaging, so looking at these in a shop, I would have no idea what their limitations would be, and certainly unboxing these, looking for that information, I didn't find it. The couplings do work fine though, so it gets a couple of marks for that. The quality I've given 3-star. On the plus side, they're good and heavy, they are well built, I didn't see any visible glue, but on the downside you have got those plastic axles and the design flaw with those flanges touching parts of the model, causing massive drag on even the broadest of curves. Not acceptable, I have to be harsh on that. Value for money then. Now if these wagons had have worked, it would have been a 5-star at $24.99, $26.99 and $21.99 respectively. Less than 60 quid for 3 massive wagons with a great level of detail would have been good, but only of course if they worked. So I think the value is okay for what you get, and it would have been so easy to correct the issues that these have, but that wasn't done, so I've knocked off a star on value because I think I've been suitably harsh elsewhere in the ratings. Overall then, that is 7.11 out of 10, that's a grade of D. If these worked properly, they would have had a higher grade on performance and they would have had a 5-star on value, which would have made their grade much higher. As it is though, let's go into the logbook. 7th place above the Hornby Gresley coaches and below the Athern hoppers. Lovely wagons, but unfortunately they just don't work properly. Well folks, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this review. Yeah, that's surprising because the Walthers stuff has always worked properly, and yet here I've got 3 different wagons that just don't. So everything was going great on this review until I got them onto the track, and then things started to go wrong. But you know what? That's why I do these reviews. It is nice to find issues because I can warn people about them. As much as it would be lovely for everything to work all the time, at least it makes these videos a bit more useful when I can identify an issue like this. So yeah, buyer beware. They may have been reduced for a reason. Purchase at your own risk. For now though, thank you so much for watching. I will see you very, very soon for another review. You take care then folks. Cheers everybody.